Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new set of images from Art Impressions. This is the Happy Spring flip card that we're going to be creating today, and we're going to make this into a slimline card. So let's go ahead and get started. So to create the base for our slimline card, I've got a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock that measures 7.5 inches by 5 inches. And I just want to make a mark right at the halfway point on the 5-inch side. So that, and I'm just going to make a little pencil mark on either side at 2.5 inches. I'm using my glass medium mat to measure this. And again, I'll just put a little pencil mark on each side. And then what I'm going to do is use my T-square to draw a straight line. This will be so that we can line up our flip die. So I'll just show you that we've got that line straight across. We'll be erasing that later, but for right now, I'm using that line to line up the flip card die. Now you do need this die set to create the base for your flip card. And there are instructions on the back. And those instructions will give you a standard A2 size card. I'm giving you the measurements here for this slimline card. So let's go ahead, and I've lined up that die right along that pencil line. I've centered it on the center of my card panel, and I'm just going to tape that down with some Post-it tape. Now those two lines off to the left and right on the die, those two sections of the die, will not cut the die. They will just make a score mark there. That top part is what is going to get cut. And let me give you a closer look at that. So you can see we have a couple little score lines on either side, and the cut is just at the very top, right above the score line. I've got my mini scoreboard, and now I'm just going to connect those score lines. And again, this is because we're doing this longer slimline card. So we need to connect that score line at the 2.5 inch mark. Now we can go ahead and fold the card, and then I'll just use that bone folder to press out that crease. What I want to do is erase that pencil mark. I'm just using my Statler eraser. And now you can see there's that flip mechanism. So let's set that aside and go to the Art Impressions Slimline Die Set. This is a stitch die. It's going to create a beautiful stitch border, and I've grabbed that 4th largest one, so that should fit perfectly on our card. So let's go ahead and die cut this panel. We need 1 of the Cilantro and 2 of the Mermaid. So I'm going to run those through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and again, that's going to give us that beautiful stitch border. All of the supplies I'm using today are listed and linked down below as well, and also on my blog. So now I've got the Lawn Fawn Grassy border die. I'm lining it up right at the very bottom of this panel. And that's going to give us that stitch border on 3 sides. So let's go ahead and cut this one out. You can see it's not quite long enough to go all the way across, so I'm going to position it right up against that previous section that we die cut. I'll just make sure I tape it down really well so it's nice and secure, and then we can cut the rest of this panel. Now what we'll do after we have that piece cut, I'm going to flip this panel around and die cut another section from the other side. Now later on you will see that I end up die cutting 1 more of these grassy borders. So I did die cut that panel again, and then I die cut another border that would come up a little bit higher, but I'll show you that as we go along. So you can see this panel is going to fit right on the inside of the card, but it's blocking that little opening I need for my flip mechanism. So I'm going to go ahead and center this on the inside of the card. I'll tape that down with a little bit of Post-it tape just to hold that in place while I figure out where I need to cut this. So I'm going back to that flip die. I'm going to line those 2 ends right up on that score line, just like we did before, but on the opposite side now, down towards the bottom. And then I'll tape that to the blue, to the Mermaid blue cardstock. And that will perfectly line up that opening for the inside of the card. So now I can go ahead and run this Mermaid cardstock through my die cutting machine and cut out that little opening. And you can see that cut that little section, that little notch out of there, and now that will fit perfectly in for the inside of the card. And there's my grassy border. So that's kind of what the inside of the card is going to look like. Now I've got my Lawn Fawn paper pack. This is called the Flower Market, and I was going to use that blue, but I did end up deciding to use the green from that paper pad. So going back to the Slimline Die Set, I'm going to grab the smallest rectangle, and I'm going to use this to create a little panel for the top of our flip card. I'm just marking that with some Post-it tape, how long I need this to be. So it's right at that edge of the Post-it tape. And so now I'll just tape this down. And again, you can see that I did decide to use that green striped paper, which is just so pretty. So I'll go ahead and tape that down, and I can run that through the die cutting machine. We need that stitch border to be all the way around this little panel. So we're going to just slide this, flip this around, and then attach it to the end. And I'm just lining it right back up inside the die just so I can cut that other end and give it that pretty stitch border. And it rounds off the corners just a little bit. So I just want to put the plate where I want to cut. So I'm placing that top plate just on that very end where I want to cut that little stitched edge, and I'll run that through. And now you can see we have that smaller version of that rectangle die. So that's a great way to get some more use out of your dies, is just to shorten them up. And we're going to do that again here. So I've got my double stitch dies again, and I'm using that banner die. So you can see it's a little bit longer than I need. So I'm going to die cut it through. And then I just want to determine how long I want this to be. So I'm placing it back on that striped panel, and I'll just line this back up. I'm just making sure that it kind of locks into place there. And now I want to cut that other end. So again, I've just placed the plate right down on the end that I want to cut, and I'll run that through. So wherever the plate is where your cutting will occur. So now you can see we've shortened up that banner quite a bit, and it fits perfectly for our sentiment. So I've got a cloudy stencil from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to start off with my Distress ink. This is the Picket Fence ink. I've got a blending brush, and I'm going to start by adding a pretty white cloudy background. Now it'll be very subtle, but what we're going to do once this is completed, we're going to come back over this with some blue ink. And you'll see it's just going to have this beautiful soft effect to it. So I'll go ahead and stencil the front of this panel, and this cloudy stencil has 4 sides to it, so you kind of switch it around. And since our panel is a little bit longer than the stencil, you just want to slide it across and keep readjusting it. So now I've got that Peacock Feathers blue ink, and we're going to go back over what we've already stenciled. So I'm lining it back up with the stenciling that I did previously with the white ink, and I'm going to just add some little shadows of that Peacock Feathers. And the combination of the two of these together, I think, is stunning. It's just a really pretty cloudy sky. And now hopefully you can see that there. So now I'll do the same thing for the inside card panel. Now I've got some Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to add a little bit down at the bottom of these grassy borders. Again, I'm just using a blender brush to do that. And that'll keep the top of the grass the lightest. And then here you'll see there's that other grassy border, that taller one. So I have 2 for the front of the card now. Now we can create some little flowers for our card, and I'm using the Flower Market paper pad, the 6x6 pad, and we'll be using that lavender, yellow, and the pinky tones. I die cut a whole bunch of these tiny little flowers. This is from the Art Impressions Garden Mini Dies. And then to create the center for those, I got a 1/4-inch hole punch. I'm using the orange color from the Lawn Fawn Rainbow paper pad, and I die cut a whole bunch of centers for those. I did want to give those a nice dimensional finish, kind of a glossy finish, so I'm using the Nuvo Crystal Glaze, and I'm adding that to the center of each of these, and I'll set all of those aside to dry. Here is the brand new Happy Spring flip set, and these little bunnies are just adorable. This also comes with the sentiment, and we're going to start our coloring with the Sugared Almond Pink, and then for this first little guy I'm using Beige and Mid Brown. And these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and they are a water-based pen. So I'll start off with the beige. I'll add a little bit of mid brown around the edges, and then I'll pull that in. I'm using a blender pen here to do the blending, but you could use a water brush here as well. I always like to put the pink on the cheeks to start, and it sometimes it gets a little bit muted out, but then I'll come back in with that pink. I just don't want to forget to put that on there, so I usually lay it down first, and then I add a little bit more if I need to. I'll just show you how I colored in the brown bunny, and then the one next to it we'll do in gray, and then I'll alternate those same colors for the other two. But I'll just show you these first two as far as the color of their fur is. And then for the next one over, we're using gray, brown, and light gray. And I'll do the same technique. So you can lay down the colors at the same time. I'm starting with the light gray, and then you can add a little bit of that darker gray right at the same time, or you can do it separately, whatever you feel most comfortable doing. On that first one, I laid down both colors together, and on this one, I did the light gray first and then added that darker gray. So it all depends on what you feel most comfortable with. Now you see the image below is the flip side image. So you've got these little bunnies. They're going to be holding up our little banner sentiment at the top of the card. And now I've switched to deep green and light green to do his little pants. So again, you've got that lower image there that we're not going to be coloring in today. I'm not going to have that on the inside of the card. But that is how this is designed, is so that when you flip it up, you can have a sentiment on the inside, and you can have your little bunnies on the inside holding up that sentiment. And they're the reverse of the ones on the front. So that's really kind of fun. And again, the instructions on the packaging are for a standard A2 size card. So that's really easy if you want to create that style. You have all the dimensions and sizes you need there. I just thought it would be fun to create this into a slimline card just for something different. And you know I love slimline cards, so for me it was an easy choice. And then I'll grab that light carmine to do the little jacket or sweater on this bunny. And I'm trying to keep it in some really light spring tones, kind of Eastery colors. But you could certainly change this up for a little boy or a birthday. You could do some rainbow colors. That would be really pretty. So this doesn't necessarily have to be Easter. This can be for anything. So now I'll grab that light carmine and add it over on this other side. I'm just trying to balance out the colors here a little bit. I don't want to use too many colors, so I'm trying to stick to a few colors on the clothing and not get it too mixed up with a variety of colors. And I was just thinking it would be really cute if those little bunnies were holding some balloons. That would be fun for a birthday card. So I think you have a lot of options with this set of images. So now I've got the turquoise green just to add a little pop of color underneath that light carmine. And then I'll go ahead and use that again over here on this little guy's pants. These are really fun to color in. They're just so cute. And these would coordinate really well with some other Easter images that you may have. You could do a whole row of these little bunnies across a slimline card. So you could stamp it, you could mask off that end bunny on the right and then stamp another section of bunnies right next to it. That would be really cute to have just a whole line of these little bunnies. Now I've got yellow and orange. I'm using the yellow first, and then I'll add that orange for some shadowing. I do find with the yellows, it's a little bit harder to get a nice shadow where it looks like you've got those darker edges. So I tend to go to that orange or sometimes the mustard color to give me the shadowing that I need. So you can play around with that, but again, I just like to come in with a color that's going to give it a little bit more dimension. Now I'll use those same two colors on this other little guy's shirt. And when you see me scribbling on the scrap paper, I'm removing some color. If you get too much color on your image, you can grab it off the image and scribble it onto your scrap paper. And also to clean off that blender pen, you want to scribble it onto your scrap paper until it goes clear. Now I've got the purple, and I'll just use this one color. I'll just come back in with a little bit more of it to add some shadowing. So you don't have to use 2 or 3 colors to do your blending. You can just use one. Just come back in with that same color and add a few more shadows. So let's go ahead and cut that out. I'm leaving a little white border all the way around. Now we can start to build up the card. And for this striped panel, I want it to sit right at the very top. So I'm going to line it up right along that top edge. Just smoothing out that glue a little bit just to make sure that this sits nice and flat at the top of the card. And then I can go ahead and glue down this blue panel. And I'm lining that right up against that striped panel. And that'll give me about a 1/4 inch of that white showing all the way around. Now I've got that taller grassy border. I'm just fluffing up that grass a little bit with my fingers. I'll place that at the bottom edge, and then we'll add that smaller grassy border doing the same thing. And I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to attach everything. Now we've got our little bunnies. I did decide to pop those up, and you can see that their little hands look like they're going to hold up that banner at the top of the card. So I want to pop these up. I'm using my 3D foam tape, and I'll place plenty of that tape along the back. This tape is really sticky. It's nice and secure, so you won't have to worry about these little guys going anywhere. And I'll center that, making sure their little hands are right along the edge of that striped panel. So again, it will look like they're holding that up. Now I'm going to add all these little pastel flowers all around the bottom in that grass, and I'm using my Marvy jewel picker to pick those up and glue those in place. Now I went back to that Rustic Wilderness Green blending brush. I didn't add any ink to it, but I went around the edges of my little banner, and off camera I stamped the Happy Spring sentiment that came with this stamp set. So again, I added that second banner behind it just to give it a little bit more substance. I edged it with that Rustic Wilderness Green, and then I'm adding that foam tape to the back of this, and I'll go ahead and pop that up. I've got a few little leftover flowers, so I thought they'd be cute up towards the top. So I did stamp my sentiment off to the left a little bit there, and so that I'd have room for a couple of flowers, but you could add a few sequins here or a little bow. That would be really cute too. For the inside of the card, let's go ahead and glue down the grassy border for the inside. And again, some of those little flowers. So it'll be really pretty when we open up the card to have the cute little flowers inside as well. Now we can attach this on the inside of the card. And you do want to make sure you have plenty of glue right up along that little notch, just so it doesn't, pop up. So make sure you have plenty of glue right there. And now I'll grab my white Signo gel pen. I'm adding just some little details to their outfits. I'm just going to add some polka dots. I'll add some little highlights just to make it a little bit more interesting, and it also makes everything pop out a little bit better. You could add some stitches or some stripes or a plaid, whatever you want to do here. This is a good time to have a little bit of fun and really personalize your card. So let's take a closer look at this little flip card. So again, you could have a sentiment on the inside when you flip that up, and then you could have those little guys on the inside, the little bunnies on the inside holding that flip. So that is definitely what the card was designed to do. So you can certainly do that. I just thought I'd keep it kind of simple on the inside for today. And I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.